Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the North Sydney Local Planning Panel. We've got 3 items that we're dealing with today, and they're all public items. We also have a number of people addressing us. North Sydney Council recognises and indeed acknowledges the Cammeraygal people as the traditional custodians of this land, and we pay homage to their existing, past and future residents of this land. What we will be doing this afternoon is hearing from each of the panellists as to their background, and we'll be telling you that we have inspected the site. Importantly, we've reinstituted group site inspections where we travel as a panel, which is very helpful because we get an opportunity to discuss many of your submissions and indeed the merits or otherwise problems with each project. We've had a very detailed briefing from council officers, and we've got a very detailed agenda and reports written that have been presented to all of us. I'd like to present the panel to you. But before doing that, can I say that the panel of each said they have no conflicts of interest for the items that are being dealt with? And can I start just by saying that I am your chairman for today. My name's Gary Shields. I'm a planner of some many years. I was a director of planning at a consultancy and indeed at a local council. I've got master's degrees in planning, traffic and urban design, and I also have a PhD in planning. Apart from working in council and local government, I was an acting commissioner in the court for a period of time. Can I introduce Meredith?
My name's Meredith Trevelyan-Jones. I have qualifications in architecture and urban estate management. I've worked in the property industry and with an architectural firm for many years, and I reside in North Sydney local government area, and I'm a community representative on this panel.
Thank you. Jen.
Jan Morell. I've been a planner of some 40 years. My last full-time position was a commissioner with the Land and Environment Court for 14 years. Prior to that, I held senior positions in local government and state government and private practice. And these days I chair or sit as an expert on planning panels.
Thanks. Jared Teresi. I'm a town planner with some 37 years of experience. I've worked in local government and in private sector, both working for councils and also for applicants in matters, and I also sit on other local planning panels as well.
Thank you, Jared. Thank you, panel. We'll deal with the items as they appear on the agenda. And the first item we have is 451 Miller Street, Cammeray. And we have 2 speakers for that particular item. The first is a submitter, Sue Wright. Sue, are you with us this afternoon?
It's not online.
Sue? All right, we'll move on from Sue. Hopefully she'll join us shortly. Andrew Berwick, are you with us?
Yep, I'm here.
Andrew, we'd love to hear from you. Can you be brief? Keep your comments to 3 minutes if you can. And we look forward to hearing from you.
We've got the report, we've got the conditions, we're very happy with all of them. The only condition that we were querying was it's in regard to the geotechnical report, condition C7. So it currently reads as prior to issue of any construction certificate, a geotechnical civil engineering report is required. We'd just like to reword that to something akin to prior to issue of a construction certificate for construction. because the requirement is for 4 boreholes, and we won't be able to do that until we demolish the building. So other than that, we were, any questions as well?
Andrew, there are some questions and I'll just pass over to the panel who'd like to go first.
Oh, I don't mind. This is Jared Teresi. I'm just curious, did you guys approach the Northern property in terms of acquisition, in terms of your development proposal?
Yes.
The reason I asked the question is obviously that is a singular site which is adjoining obviously that laneway. So I'm just wondering whether or not any approaches were made.
So our original intention was to purchase that one, and the current purchaser paid a little bit more for it. And then we approached them with a number of offers. I've provided a statutory stat deck where we made 3 offers to them, substantially above what they paid for as well, and substantially above what we considered to be market. But I did provide that stat declaration, I believe. Basically, they wouldn't sell. They just wouldn't sell. So quite frankly, the prices that they got to were quite borderline becoming ridiculous from a development perspective.
Right. Okay. Thank you. The other question I got just relates to your basement car park, and more particularly, I've looked at your roof plan. I can't see a mechanical vent where your car park, I'm assuming, is going to be mechanically ventilated. Is the car park being vented up to the roof, or is it being vented by some other means?
Sorry, Jack here as well from Platino Properties. And so, yeah, there's no vent currently shown on the plans, but that's the intention, that it will be ventilated up to the roof. That's right.
Right. So on that basis, have you worked out how you're going to get it from the basement up into the roof, given your layouts?
No, yeah, that'll just be part of the detailed design through the construction certificate stage. But I'm sure we'll make do.
Just to clarify on that question, it will add a height, because it has to be above the level of the roof. Won't it be a requirement for it to then extend beyond the roof line?
So there's a plant area marked on the roof plant there, and it will, I presume, be ventilated and fit within that area, and that's fenced off that plant area. And I wouldn't imagine that it'd be higher than the fence indicated on that plant area that's encasing the plant area.
Right.
Just while you're on that, the chimney, have you given consideration to how you deal with that issue?
So I couldn't quite hear that one. Could you repeat that, please?
The chimney, there seems to be a chimney right on your boundary that's shared with your neighbour. Got your separate funnels, but there'll be some surgery required for the chimney. Have you resolved that or talked to your neighbour about it?
No, so again, that'd be part of the detailed design during construction certificate stage. Because we share a wall with them, and that'll have to be worked out by the structural engineer to work out how that's all going to work in conjunction with the neighbour.
What if the neighbour doesn't agree?
Well, if the neighbour doesn't agree, then we'd have to go down the 88K route and figure something out in that regard.
Yes, I've got a question for you. I noticed you've got a number of windows on both the north and south boundary, and also looking at drawing 704, which is the units receiving 2 hours of sunlight. And the first floor, you show the 3-bedroom apartment that's facing north, not receiving adequate solar access, but the apartments immediately above it receiving adequate solar access. It appears to me that that you're relying on sunlight coming across the roof of the existing two-story building to the north of you. So if that site is redeveloped, do you lose solar access to those apartments on the second and third floor facing north?
No, well, in terms of the Maggio's building, which is the one next door,
Yeah.
I'm sure you'd agree that that's pretty well undevelopable from now, given that it's only about 3.5 meters wide, and you'd have to have a 1.5 meter setback from that lane. So you can't really develop that area, in our opinion.
So your assumption is that land will never be developed?
That's right, yeah.
It's an isolated site then.
That's correct. Yes.
Definitely an isolated site, and we looked into it, and the setbacks to the Kamiargal place made it extremely difficult unless consolidated with ours. But as I said, we approached them multiple times, and
They wouldn't sell.
you know,
We got documentation.
we have documentation. I believe I submitted a statutory declaration to that effect.
Could you just speak up a little bit or turn your speaker up, please? We've turned ours up.
So I'm not sure. I'll just speak up. So we approached them multiple times. As I said, they've just come to a ridiculous amount. But we did detailed design on that. And as Jack just intimated, the setbacks because of the Kamiargal place mean that, in our opinion, in isolation, it cannot be developed. And even in concert with our site, it was challenging to get a lot of floor space and a lot of NSA, because a lot of it had to be balcony and addressing Kamiargal place in both frontages. So,
But did you say you've done a concept sketch in terms of how the northern site could be developed? Did I understand that correctly, or?
Within our development.
so our original intention was to purchase that property as well, and we were going down that route. And then at the very last minute, we were superseded with our price.
Yeah.
We then went to Maggio's, and we made offers significantly over and above even what they paid for it, even what we offered previously. And they just refused to engage multiple times. So it just
No, I understand that, but the second question is the key question, which is, given that's occurred and you've designed your building, you've got that little cutout where your courtyard is.
Yeah.
Have you considered, if next door was developed, how next door could be developed, or you've just made the assumption it will never be developed?
That's right. Well, no, yeah, it can't, in our opinion, because you have to have the 1.5 meter setback from that lane, which gives you a developable area of about 1.5 meters. So how are you gonna go any higher than that?
I'm just bemused where you get that 1.5 metre setback requirement. Are you saying that's what you were advised by the council?
No, well, that's what the rule book. I'm pretty sure that's what the DCP says. You have to that lane that goes through there, that you have to have a 1.5 meter setback from that.
But you've got an existing building there.
up to 2 levels.
The council make allowances for existing buildings.
And it's a development control plan, so a development would have to be assessed on its merits.
Sure.
So did you provide documentation as to your actual offers and then correspondence from the owner of the adjoining property that rejected those offers? And what were those offers that were made in terms of market value?
We didn't provide.
Yeah. So that's part of the statutory declaration that was submitted. That includes all the offers that were made, including the prices, and the correspondence with the neighbour who owns the building. That's correct.
But if I owned that building hypothetically,
Sure.
and I wanted to add a third level, what would prevent me to do that if I wanted to do that? And put an application into council and say that I'm not knocking it down, but I can do alterations and additions to it. So you've made the assumption that nothing will ever happen, basically.
You could do alterations and additions, and you could add an additional level, but that, because of the setback that you'd have to have from the lane, you wouldn't achieve much. Sure.
But you may not be required to make a setback of 1.5 because all of the other developments are on the boundary and it's an existing one. So you wouldn't have a setback of 1.5 because it's there, and it's if it's alterations and additions, then you could expect to put another floor on it.
Sure, okay. You could definitely add another floor, but again, we've been doing this for a little while, and from a development perspective, I'd say that the possibility of that happening would be close to zero.
So you're isolating the site. Okay, thank you.
Can I just go back to this mechanical vent? I know you've said that you feel that there's something you can deal with at a later stage, but I'm looking at your layouts. I'm looking where you've got your skylights on your roof, and I'm looking where your lift overrun is, and I'm looking at your commercial level. How are you going to create the penetration to get up vertically without having some impact to your layout of your apartments?
Again, I'm not a services engineer, but many schemes that are similar to this before, including in terms of the layout and the location of the plant area, and it's managed to work.
Okay. I only got one more final question, being myself. In terms of your side walls, you've got rendered on, other than the top level, you've got rendered walls. Would you have any objections if they were brick rather than rendered walls?
Sorry, could you just turn that? Could you?
So on your side boundaries, you're building to the boundary, both to your north and to your south. And at the moment, other than your top level, you actually have got rendered walls. The question I've got, is there any objections, rather than being rendered, whether they are actually in a brick construction?
On you mean both? You'd want to do both levels above?
Yeah, basically. And the reason I'm asking the question is that those walls are going to be quite exposed for a period of time until such time that the adjoining properties are developed. And although a rendered wall might look quite good in the first few years, over time they will deteriorate. So I'm looking at what other material which is more durable and from a maintenance point of view, so therefore the aesthetics of the building is retained for a longer period of time until adjoining sites are redeveloped.
Well, ordinarily we'd make those out of AFS, but if there was no structural issue and we could make it work structurally, we wouldn't have a problem with it.
Because I just formed the view, given you are doing brickwork at the front, that you're going to more than likely have a bricklayer on site. So I just thought, from a trade point of view, it might be the logical thing to do.
Yeah, we can certainly look at that. Sure.
Okay, thank you.
I've got a follow-on question. I talked about solar access, and we've talked about the northern property. On the southern side, the properties there obviously can be redeveloped if somebody amalgamated a suitable site. You've got some slot windows as well as the courtyard facing in that direction, providing daylight. You would appreciate that a developer of an adjoining site there to the south would run into opposition, presumably from residents in your building, if their windows were going to be blocked and their courtyard was going to be blocked. Would you have an objection to us requiring those windows to be deleted and a wall on the courtyard?
A wall that runs the entire height of the building?
Well, that's might well be what you're facing, or the owners of the apartments are facing in a few years' time if that site to the south is redeveloped.
Yeah.
So I got the window part. What was the other part that you said? Sorry.
Well, it's access for daylight. You're effectively borrowing amenity across the rooftop and the site to the south, which can create problems in the future when that site's redeveloped. So it would be easier if we simply didn't have those windows and we had a wall across the courtyard or a screen of some sort.
Yeah, no, yeah, we wouldn't have a problem with that. And yet the windows as well, that's fine.
Thank you.
I'd just like to give you some positive feedback because the panel actually was quite impressed with the liaison that you've had with the council, with the way you modified the drawings and the way in which you picked up the theme of the street with the arches, etc. So don't think it's all doom and gloom from outside. Could I just finish? So we are impressed with the effort that you've made, but we do have reservations about the isolated site that is left. And having said that, and given you a small accolade, can I just ask if you're contrasting the colours between the upper section and the lower section? It seems to be differentiated in your materials, but there's a mixture of different styles or different types of materials, which confuses me anyway. Could you just articulate the top section, top 2 stories, the materials you're proposing, and the bottom 2 stories, please?
701.
Mary, because in this one it's different.
Yeah. On this one here with the materials, it's got aluminium and brick and then something else like.
Yeah, whereas in that one, yes.
Yeah, right.
Just getting that drawing up, sorry.
So if, while you're doing that, if the committee's reservation or concern about the isolated site is correct, just for abundant clarity, you wouldn't have any problems in those windows that have been shown on that northern boundary being eliminated.
Just a second. Yeah.
Traffic link.
For the very upper level?
Is that the same as this?
No, it's.
No, yeah, on the northern side, that would be fine as well.
That'd be fine.
Yeah.
They just panic. So with that same theme, I'm not sure whether the question was asked of you, but if there could be allowance made for a traffic link from your side to the adjoining side to the north.
In terms of an easement to say that in the event that's developed, basically that we'd provide.
Well, it'd actually be both. It would, if the development takes place, it would be an opening. And yes, you're right, it would be an easement.
Yeah, no, yeah, we've done that before. No problem with that either.
Okay. It was an involved question, that one about the materials, wasn't it?
Yeah, so
You've got half your office here.
well, now we're bringing in the architects.
Right, good.
Do you mind just repeating the question for the benefit of Florian, who's our architect internally?
It was a simple question. It was, can you just explain to the panel the colours and textures of materials you're proposing on the western elevation?
The west elevation.
Facing the street.
Could you introduce yourself, please, the architect?
Yeah, I'm Florian Kraisak, working for Platino.
Maybe you could get a bit closer to the microphone. We're having a lot of difficulty hearing you.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm Florian Kraisak.
That's better.
Yeah,
Thank you.
for Platino.
I'm sorry, what's the company?
Yeah, PA Studio.
PA Studio, right, and you're a registered architect?
No, I'm a designer for PA Studio.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I picked that up from this.
carry on, please.
Yeah. So the west elevation facing Miller Street has white bricks. Similar to the surrounding context, we can see there is a bit of a beige, light grey, white tones around the building, around the existing building. So we just decided to keep the same color tones. and it will be a white brick. And you can see the three arches are similar to the existing one, obviously a bit bigger to improve the solar access into the unit, and to provide more natural lights, and while keeping the existing heritage character.
And the materials for the upper levels,
And
are they contrasting to the lower two levels?
Yeah, upper material will be a light gray concrete, and it will be a bit of contrast between the podium, which is more traditional heritage character, and top of the building, the two upper floor, which are more modern, I would say. And we can see some large windows, the same to bring a maximum of natural light inside the unit, and a bit of metal louvers, the black that you can see on the elevation. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, I've got a question to the designer, given now you're at the table, and I did ask this question previously about the mechanical ventilation from the basement car park to the roof.
Yeah.
We've been advised as the panel that you haven't factored that into the design at this particular stage. I guess my concern and the panel's concern could potentially be is how are you going to get mechanical ventilation to go through this building based on your layout? Are you able to give us some indication how you of the opinion that you can actually get mechanical ventilation to work, please?
From the basement to the roof. Yeah.
Yep.
Maybe we can show a layout. I can.
You can share the screen if you wish.
Yeah. This one is. Back to it. It's a bit slow.
You weren't sharing that.
Yeah. Okay. Let's take a picture.
Yes, I do that.
Okay, let's try this.
That's all right. Step 65 statement.
Project architect.
Yes, screen. Okay, I'm sharing now. Can you see it?
Yep.
We can see, so here on the typical floor, the car park exhaust. And so this riser and exhaust is going all the way up to the building. So we can see, we go.
Sorry, can you enlarge that screen, please?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I will try, sorry. I don't know the name of this one. Control plus. That's kind of big. Probably got some technical issue.
Hey, no.
Okay. Yeah, can see it here.
So next to the bathrooms.
It is there.
Yeah, it is a car CP exhaust here, which is about the dimension. So this riser is going all the way up to the roof from the basement, and we can see every floor is the same. Yeah. So provision for that. Yeah.
But my understanding that the car exhaust from there has to be set back off the boundary under BCA/NCC.
You mean on the roof?
Yeah, on the roof. So how are you going to manage then that? You can't have and I'm happy to be wrong, but my understanding is that you can't actually have it on the boundary, the actual exhaust vent. I think it's got to be a minimum of 2 metre setback off a side boundary, off memory.
Yeah, so we'll arrange that. It's we have done many projects with a similar situation, and we have to run the exhaust on the roof further to the boundary, so somewhere here in the middle. So yeah. So if we haven't provided any technical drawings yet, but in our CC we will show exactly where the exhaust is going on the roof to avoid to go more than 3 meters from the boundary.
I've got no more questions.
Sorry, just in the development, sorry, one further question, Chair,
Yeah.
just in the development, are you relying on the party wall or is it going to be self-contained?
It will be a new wall, yeah.
So the party wall will remain in situ?
Yeah. You mean north? You mean on this?
Yes, on the north, yep, and the south, yep.
Yeah. So this one we will keep the existing one and build a new one set back from the existing brick wall. We can here, for example, yeah. We can see if we zoom in here. We can see this is the existing building line. And we can see that we are more than 100 millimeter setback from the existing. So that's a new concrete wall. Yeah.
Right.
And towards the rear, it was touched on a moment ago, but I don't think you were in the room when the question was asked. But towards the rear, there is a chimney, which seems to be a shared chimney stack between your site and the adjoining site to the north. So what are you doing in terms of that aspect? Because obviously there's work which needs to be done on the adjoining property because you're going to be demolishing that stack.
That's a good question.
So again, we'll have to enter into a deed or some form of agreement with the neighbour, which is what I mentioned before, to cover not only dealing with how we're going to, separate our building from their building, but also in terms of, the anchors and the crane slew and all the other stuff that you typically have to do when you're building a building next door to someone else anyway, and how that's dealt with, and will just be part of that agreement that we come to with the neighbour before we start construction.
Panel, any other questions?
No, thanks.
No. Thank you for your feedback and your presentation. We will deliberate over your matter after we conclude with the other speakers on the other items. And you'll see the results posted on the council website the next day or so. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for time. Yeah.
Moving on to item 2. And item 2, we have 4 speakers. Gentlemen, are you all proposing to address this, or do you have a nominated speaker? Who's the captain of your team? Mr. Mead, is it?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chair. Yes, I'll be leading the team. Well, I have Graham Brooks with me and also the project architect.
Graham Brooks is looking younger than ever.
So yeah, I'll lead off. So there's 3 on our side. I'm not sure if
I'm on work from home today, Chair.
I'm sorry. I didn't hear that voice. Who was that?
That was Graham.
Well, it was you, was it, Graham?
Oh, that won't be me, sorry. Just saying I'm working from home, so my internet's not all that strong.
Mr. Mead, then will you please address the panel?
Yes, thank you. We intend to keep it very short to the extent that this project has quite a history, as you would no doubt have been briefed in terms of its heritage history. As you see from the report, there was an IHO imposed on the site which then led to a revised DA being submitted. That revised DA has been assessed against clause 5.10 as if the site were heritage listed, despite being in a draft state at the moment. Different approach. Second time around with the DA, we're comfortable with the heritage outcomes. That's why Graham's here. The staff report deals with those. From a planning point of view, obviously, the panel's charged with upholding a 4.6 relates to height. As you'll see in the report, the height breach is a minor height breach and is explained largely by the topography of the site, which falls by over 4 metres across fall. That's been assessed in detail in the staff report as well. We agree with that assessment and its conclusions. We also note that the staff report has a detailed response to submissions that were made during neighbour notification. Those issues that were raised largely cross over with planning matters that have been dealt with in detail through the staff assessment. Again, we agree with the conclusions reached on those matters and would say that there's no submission that would warrant refusal of the application. We're comfortable with the recommended conditions of consent, including the deferred commencement that relates to geotech matters. We're happy to accept that condition and, of course, do that work. It's work that we would be doing anyway. And then the other operational conditions we are also comfortable with. So I think our time is probably best spent if there's any questions of the panel. Having observed the last matter, I expect there might be questions about mechanical exhausts and roof elements. We've thought through all of that, so we can give you the answers on that. Yes, we have a mechanical exhaust. Yes, it's shown on our plans, including on our height plane diagram. Our 4.6 deals with those elements. And so we think that we've addressed those things thoroughly. But yeah, be happy to answer any questions that the panel may have.
Thanks, Mr. Mead. The elephant in the room is the excavation, particularly under the heritage building. And we're just wondering how your collective efforts might explain to the panel how you'll keep the building up when you pull out all the foundations from under it.
Very good question for brighter minds than mine. So I'll hand you over to Ben Pomeroy, the project architect, who knows a lot more about this. We know that the deferred commencement condition also goes to this matter, but of course, we're confident it's a major part of the project and something that has been thought about. But over to you, Ben.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Jeff, and afternoon, panel members. Unfortunately, I don't have the, as part of the DA submission, we have got a initial structural engineering design and strategy, but which I can talk you through in broad brush principles, is working with our structural engineer and a provisional early discussion with contractor. There's an engineering solution. I guess the way that it's currently designed is it's a combination of underpinning and detailed excavation around the footings of the existing structure. That's been worked through in quite a lot of detail. Essentially, with an existing wall in one position, you excavate two sides of that for the two footings, connect through a spanning structure, and that holds up the existing wall, and you do that a series of times. So essentially, the new footings go either side of where existing walls are. That cross link is connected through, and that enables you to then excavate below. So our structural engineer is actually, and it's part of it, informs our DA design so far. So our structural columns shown in our DA drawings are informed by a preliminary structural design on that basis, because we had the same question, was how do we ensure, in particular, that existing northern staircase that's being retained with not only its shape, but also its internal finishes and fixtures. So I could try and dig that structural drawing up, but that's essentially the concept of how it works.
Thank you. Panel questions?
Yeah, I've got a question. I think Mr. Mead probably is where I was probably going to ask it, given his earlier comments. In terms of your lift overrun, it's a debate we seem to be having in our industry a lot in terms of the lift overruns and the relevant heights. Have you guys, in designing this lift overrun, have a specific lift you know you're providing?
I might better answer that one. So yes, we're utilising a Schindler low overrun type lift.
Right.
There's a new model that came into the market around 12 to 15 months ago. So it wasn't obviously available. And I think in our initial DA lodgement, we had a much more significant overrun due to the time that's elapsed. We've been utilizing that model. We've got it in construction in another project now. So it's a specific Schindler brand. I don't have that to hand with me, but I guess we obviously don't want to, given it's a large manufacturer's brand, there are now some competitors who are matching that in terms of it's a circa 3.8 overrun rather than the old 4.5-ish. So it takes a good 500 to 700 mils out of the overall height of our lift overrun.
Would you have an objection if a condition was imposed which actually nominates the lift in question, or you haven't determined the lift provider at this stage?
I guess that it becomes very challenging because procurement for all mechanical lifting is very difficult at the moment. I guess our understanding would be that we've nominated a very specific RL on the top of our lift overrun, and that any manufacturer will have to make sure that they achieve that.
So if we therefore reword the condition to say that the lift overrun specifically can't be any greater than X, that's something you could live with.
Yeah, so I think we've nominated an RL on our roof drawing. So yes.
Okay. And yes, you have noted the car park event, which is fine. But again, in terms of height, are you sure that that meets relevant standards? Because I've seen a lot of exhaust vents which are a lot higher than what you've shown. So I guess I just want to have the confidence that that is the height which is actually going to be built.
Yeah. Sorry, you go, Ben. No.
I guess again, similarly for the DA, we had some preliminary mechanical advice. The design of this building enables it's an inline fan, but on its side on the top of the roof. And so I guess if you look in our height plan drawing, you see we've modeled an envelope of something approximating that. Obviously doesn't have the detailed design of it, but that's the idea. It's a horizontal fan that lies on the rooftop. And I guess where the roof drops down is where we've tried to position that as well.
And that's why it's an L shape.
That's why it's an L shape. Yeah, that's why it's a bit longer, but obviously it takes out the vertical rise of, 1.2 meters sometimes if you run it a vertical, because you've got the inline fan. By putting the fan on its side, the duct comes out the top and then runs along.
Okay, no worries. Thank you.
Any other questions, panel?
No.
Just one question, and given it's a public record, the heritage significance, Mr. Brooks, of the dwelling of the residential flat building built in 1938, I believe. Just for clarification and confirmation, the requirements under the LEP, as if it were a heritage item, they have been satisfied? Sorry, we can't hear you.
Thank you for your question. Yes, I believe it is. So I've got difficult internet connections. So if you can hear me, yes, we're satisfied with those heritage definitions, and that the ones that are going into the LEP formally. So we've designed in accordance with those conditions.
Right. Perhaps Jeff, if you heard my question, you could just clarify.
Yeah, sure. So the approach to the application, as you see in the report, it is as if the item is listed. And so Mr. Brooks has gone through that full 5.10 assessment as if it were an item, and we're obviously comfortable that we meet that, but staff's report and their heritage referral concur with the assessment under 5.10. So we don't try and set it aside by virtue of it just being a draft.
Thank you.
One further question, if I may, and I think this is back to you, Ben. You seem to be the fallback on this. I've just had a bit of a look at your structural letter from Greenview Consulting. Have you got an indication of the cost of that underpinning, structural supporting?
Oh, it wasn't cheap.
Indication was not.
Well, look, I can't. I don't know.
All goes to viability.
Look, I think really so I guess if we go back a step, so we did look at a solution where we could essentially underpin the entire structure. So one of our early options was cutting the underside of the entire building and going all the way through. We did look at the viability of that. That was quite expensive. And I guess where we've tried to land is something which is a bit of a balancing act between the two. I can't speak to exactly the quantity of cost. But I guess the rationale of it at the moment is the provisioning of car parking that's under that area balances out the cost of the underpinning works. And some of the detail review that we've done of the interior layouts of the building as well. I guess where we can, working with Graham around what some of those elements that we retain as part of the design in particular. As you can see through some of the layouts as we go up the building, quite a lot of those walls are retained. But the simplest solution that I was quite surprised at is that your underpinning doesn't match the line of your building above. And so that gave us a bit more flexibility to do what we've done here, which is cutting in more dramatically than what you would usually anticipate, which is, half a metre off the wall. That's as far as you can go. But in terms of cost, unfortunately, I can't speak to the exact cost of that. I know our client's somewhere on the line, hopefully, but he might have a better idea.
Ballpark. You don't want exact cost, just ballpark. A lot. No?
Yeah. I mean, I know it's a good it's a good 4 to 5 weeks worth of work. So day rates of labourers being what they are, that's definitely into 6 figures, just the underpinning itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would have thought so.
Yeah. So it's I guess, is it an economical exercise to retain the building? No. However, I guess as a balanced outcome with the new building offsetting that and the refurbishment of the new, I guess if that's kind of the answer. This sits somewhere between those two.
I think if the question's going to the ability to make this feasible with that work, the answer is definitely yes, to the extent that that was the springing point for the new DA. Obviously, there was some serious testing and all of those things in the feasibility model to pursue the second DA with the retention. So.
Okay. Any other questions from the panel?
No, thank you.
Nothing.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
We'll make a determination later this afternoon, and you know the deal. It'll be on the website shortly.
We're refreshing our websites. Thank you.
Thank you.
Afternoon.
Mr. Mead's not hanging around for the last item, is he? No. So we've got one person presenting to us on the last item, have we not?
It's on there. Yeah.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. So my name is Piers Hemphill. I'm a consultant planner with DFP Planning. I prepared the development application on behalf of council. So I don't wish to address you, but I make myself available should you have any questions.
We'll just check with the panel. We're waiting for your lucid description, so we'd be instantly decided on what we're going to do. But any questions, panel?
No, I have no questions. The technical aspects have been covered, and thank you.
Yeah, I have no questions either.
Well, I was just going to ask, it seems like a very straightforward proposal. Is that the way it felt to you once you'd gone through all the facts and we were writing your report?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, no physical works are proposed. It's a total of 3 additional hours per week of a long-established existing use. So, yeah, and the additional hours are substantially less than those which were trialled for a year without incident or without complaint. So, yeah, there was little question in my evaluation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No other questions?
No.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.